Welcome back to Heart of Gold. I'm Heather French Henry. We continue our look at nonprofit organizations who are helping to fulfill Mayor Greg Fisher's initiative to make Louisville one of the country's most compassionate cities. Joining us now is Diane Nelson, the Executive Director of Visually Impaired Preschool Services. Diane, VIPS is celebrating a milestone. Tell us about it.
We are proudly celebrating our 30th year as an agency serving blind and visually impaired children birth to age 5 across the state of Kentucky and Indiana. And statistics show that 80% of brain development occurs before age 5, and an additional 90% is through the visual pathways through most of your life. So when our children are born or diagnosed blind, it's critical to have that early intervention. So we've been doing that for 30 years, and we've grown from serving just Louisville, Kentucky, to serving the entire state of Indiana and Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Well, that's a wonderful service, Diane. And since VIPS is celebrating 30 years of helping children with sight issues, give us a little history. How did the organization get started, and what area was it designed to serve?
Well, again, we serve the blind and visually impaired birth to 5, but I'd like to share with you all a quote from a family that recently that explains what we do. And it's, as parents, we look to our parents, friends, and even books to figure out how to raise our children the best that we can. Unfortunately, these traditional resources aren't sufficient enough when your child is blind or visually impaired. The fear that you're going to fail your child can be overwhelming. This is where VIPS helps. For 30 years, VIPS has propelled these children to succeed in spite of their vision issues and help parents to understand that the hopes and dreams that they have for their children are achievable. This is why parents seek out VIPS. This is why families uproot their families and move to Louisville. And this is why the community should support VIPS. So in 1985, Sharon Bensinger was working. She was a teacher working at American Printing House for the Blind in research. And she was getting calls from parents who encountered their first blind person. It just happened to be their child, and they wanted to know where they turned to learn how to teach their children. So Sharon got really frustrated and decided to solve the problem in Louisville, Kentucky, and approached the Crusade for Children. And they started VIPS with $10,500 from the Crusade and a matching grant of $10,500 from Metro United Way and a caseload of 8 children. So here we are 30 years later. And we have offices in 3 cities, and we're serving over 400 children annually, but thousands and thousands over 30 years.
All starts with a little bit of passion. Well, we'll talk more, but first, it's important that we all meet one of the youngsters who has been helped from the services at VIPS.
I write Annie.
You did write Annie. That's your name.
Shot.
She was diagnosed at about 4 months. We noticed she wasn't tracking things visually as well as other kids were her age.
Addison's parents were told she has optic nerve hypoplasia, which means that Addison's optic nerve is severely underdeveloped. That diagnosis means that Addison is and will remain legally blind.
That was a really scary point for us because it's pretty scary when you don't know how to help your kids and you don't know where to go.
Good dancing like that. Here will be.
The Clarksons got help through First Steps and at Visually Impaired Preschool Services, or VIPS.
It was really a relief when we had found VIPS and we found somebody that was an expert in something that we were dealing with, and it was a big relief for us.
Good twisting, Annie.
Addison has been coming to VIPS since she was 6 months old. At 3, she's learning the basics and joins the thousands of children with visual issues who've been helped at VIPS in the past 20 years. Those kinds of services started and continue thanks in part to the WHAS Crusade for Children.
We want to make sure we reach those children so that we can provide them with the critical early intervention that they need to reach their developmental milestones, such as learning to crawl and learning to walk and learning to talk and feed themselves.
How about Landon's name?
Melissa Swan, WHAS 11 News.
Since 1984, VIPS has received more than $1 million in Crusade grants. That funding has provided children like Addison with teachers who are trained specifically to help a child with visual issues to fulfill their potential. So I understand that your preschool in Louisville is considered a center of excellence, which is so great, around the local community and internationally being recognized. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, because of the $1.7 million that the Crusade has given us over the years, we've, when you ask experts in the field where to go to learn to teach a child of visual impairment at preschool age, they send them to VIPS. So we have had visitors from China and Japan and Australia and Canada and all over the United States to come and see our little facility in Louisville, Kentucky, which was built because of best practices. In fact, we're also a test site for American Printing House for the Blind when they come up with new concepts for that population. And then additionally, as word spread as a national model, we've been approached by other states. So we moved to Indiana and started there, and recently talked to the governor of Michigan, a commission that he had gathered to talk about how to provide services in Michigan.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. What other states offer programs that are similar to VIPS?
Unfortunately, there are very few. That we're in a very limited group, and only a handful of agencies like ours across the United States, unfortunately.
Well, outside of sending teachers to the home and the on-site preschool efforts, do you offer other services as well?
We do. We have a multiple assortment of services for parents. We have a newsletter. We do staff family retreats where we bring families in from all over the state. And in fact, this year we're doing one in collaboration with Kentucky School for the Blind. We also have a video series that we started about 25 years ago that we're getting ready to reproduce, but that we sell internationally on how to implement best practices for your child with visual impairment. So.
Well, it's great to know Kentucky has some best practices.
That's right.
That's excellent. Well, time to introduce everyone to another youngster who has benefited from the expertise of the teachers at VIPS.
Good morning. How are you, buddy?
I kind of realized when he started holding everything up really close, watching TV, playing with toys. So, and he was never able to detect between blue and green.
Meeting new friends is fun to do.
The cause of Tavion's vision problems has yet to be determined. Early on, he received help at the First Steps program. Once he was old enough for preschool, his uncle Darren, who is sight impaired as well, guided Tavion's mom Jasmine through the process to get Tavion enrolled at VIPS, or Visually Impaired Preschool Services.
Every morning we come to school and what you're going to do today, and he's always really excited to come to class and goes in with a big bang and hi.
Be careful, don't let it fall over. 9. Wow! It all fell down.
Tavion is one of thousands of children with visual problems who've been helped at VIPS since the agency opened its doors over 20 years ago. VIPS has received funding from the Crusade since that first day.
And the Crusade has been there all along supporting us. A lot of donors don't want to support teacher salaries, but that's our most important effort, is to provide a teacher to those parents so that they can learn to teach their children and work with their children until age 5.
Well, okay, you go ahead and go.
Melissa Swan, WHAS 11 News.
Tavion's mom, Jasmine, says his reading and his recognition of colors have improved. But most importantly, she says she is learning techniques to help Tavion work on his life skills outside of the classroom. So how can community children benefit from your programs as well?
Well, once a month during the school year, on Fridays, we have what we call Friday Friends, which is a community gathering of children in our center-based facility. We have what we call Cozair Charities Kids Town, which is a real city. And so these community children get to come in and participate in that. Additionally, we have slots in our program for sighted peers, so that for every 8 children in our program that are blind, we have 2 sighted children that teach our kids socialization skills. And then our children teach them compassion and understanding and patience with visual impairment. In fact, one of my favorite stories was a graduate last year. He was a sighted peer, so a typical community child in our program, and had been for 2 years. And at graduation time, his mother mentioned that his friend was visually impaired or blind. And he said, "He's blind?" And she said, "Well, yeah, most of your classmates are blind." They're blind? So they see each other as children. They don't see each other as, in any way disabled. So
Right, exactly.
yeah.
And that's so important. And how do people, you want to get more volunteers. You want to make this, a more social awareness, about this. Just like you said, that he was like, he's blind?
Yeah.
So how do people get involved? Can you volunteer?
Absolutely. In fact, they're the lifeblood of what we do, the volunteers are. We have opportunities for example, as part of the Mayor's Give a Day, we've got a group coming over from Middletown Christian who's going to be doing landscaping and weed pulling. And we also have opportunities for teenagers to interact with children. We have opportunities for volunteers at events. Being a small nonprofit, that's a lot of the labor that we need as volunteers. So.
We love volunteers in many different avenues, right?
Yeah.
Well, tell us a success story of one of your graduates and how VIPS contributed to that. I think this is going to be someone that a lot of us know.
Yes, probably our most famous local graduate.
He's a celebrity.
A celebrity, yeah, absolutely, is Patrick Henry Hughes. And actually, Patrick has a movie coming out in July, I Am Potential, that talks about his growing up. And he's been very successful. And but when he was born, you know, he had no eyes and limited movement, and his parents needed help to learn how to teach him. So they turned to visually impaired preschool services, and we sent a teacher to the home who worked with the parents, who we feel are the best and first teachers of each child, to teach them the skill set that they need to help Patrick be successful. So VIPS partnered with the Patricia and Pat early on to help Patrick get a start.
Wow, I met Patrick many years ago when he was much younger, and just what a great role model and inspiration story for all of us, no matter what walk of life you're in.
Absolutely.
So let's introduce everyone to another child being helped by VIPS.
Okay.
Levi, can you do some sorting?
Levi has been diagnosed with cerebral palsy and cortical vision impairment. Cortical vision impairment has to do with the message that the eye is seeing. The brain is not being able to receive the message. So you might give him a picture of an apple and he knows that it's an apple, but he can't tell you that it's an actual apple.
Is this one of your favorite things to do, Levi?
Laura Lee enrolled Levi at VIPS after hearing about the preschool's excellent record with other parents and agencies.
They use large print. They don't have a lot of visuals on the wall to distract him. They can teach him Braille, and they also can teach him how to use his hands and other senses to help him throughout life.
We have children that are being bused from Trimble County, and then we have children coming in from Bullitt County, soon to be Shelby County, because our teachers can provide 16 hours a week of one-on-one for these visually impaired children, and the school systems aren't prepared to do that.
The salaries of VIPS teachers are paid in part by the Crusade, thus guaranteeing children like Levi get the opportunity to fulfill their potential.
He has grown so much.
Melissa Swan, WHAS 11 News.
Laura Lee says that since coming to VIPS, Levi is far more social. He now interacts with everyone, something he didn't do in the past. Now, tell us a little bit about special events that are coming up, because I know that you all have things year-round, but what are some of the special things coming up?
Well, VIPS has a $2 million budget, of which only about 15% comes from the state or school system. So we have to have a lot of special events. And coming up, May is our busiest, actually, month. We have the 12th in Lexington, we have a golf tournament. In Louisville on the 18th, we have a golf tournament. The 17th of May in Indianapolis, we have a walk for dreams. And then May 30th is probably our biggest event, and it's our Brown-Forman Tennis Ball, which is held at Louisville Boat Club. And it's an evening before a tennis tournament, and we have a dinner and auction and special food and bourbon tastings and a lot of fun things to do. And then the next day is a tennis tournament.
So are all of these events on your website?
They are.
Oh, great.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is www.vips.org.
Wonderful. Now, one thing that I did have a question about before we close is, are all children eligible for VIPS?
Any child that is diagnosed with low vision or is considered legally blind, so low vision to no vision, and referred to us, birth to 5, receives services regardless of cost. We charge no one for services because we get support from people like the Crusade.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, we've been talking to Diane Nelson, Executive Director of VIPS. We have to say goodbye now, but if you make sure you visit the website. We're very grateful for the Crusade for Children helping us to make it to this 30-year milestone. Their ongoing support helps us continue to change the lives of children of blindness. I know that, Diane, you wouldn't be doing your job without the generosity of so many out there, certainly, and you have an ongoing challenge grant to raise $300,000. So we want to thank you for your time, and good night, ladies and gentlemen. Join us next time on Heart of Gold.